You're listening to What It's Like with Luce, a podcast highlighting ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I'm your host Lucy Norris, and on today's episode I'm chatting with an Irish professional triathlete, coach and founder of the #Prison2Pro program. Growing up in Darndale, this week's guest had dreams of becoming a professional footballer. Despite being faced with massive adversity, at age 15 he was scouted to play in Scotland, where he was offered a youth training scholarship. Just 6 months into his time there, his future was shattered when he received the call from home, telling him his father had been sentenced to prison for manslaughter. Returning to Ireland, he found himself in an impossible situation, being left to care for his 5 siblings without any parental guidance. Under threat in the community, he turned to local criminal gangs for protection and to put food on the table for his family. In 2013, this led to a 2-year prison sentence for drug offences. Leaving prison and witnessing the death of his close friend, he realised it was time to break the cycle and look towards creating a brighter future for himself and his family. Surrounding himself with positive people, one day he went to watch a triathlon, and well, the rest is history. Now a professional Irish athlete and coach, he's hoping by telling his story he'll inspire others to change their generation too. Here's what it's like to be Ger Redmond. Before we get stuck into the episode, I just wanted to say that if there is a drop in sound quality throughout, I'm very sorry. But in respect of social distancing during COVID-19, I've had to record episodes remotely. In this challenging time, we're all trying our best, so I really hope everyone is staying safe and that you enjoy the episode. Welcome, Ger. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me today. I really appreciate you giving up your time. How I like to kick things off is just to let people in a little bit about who you are by going all the way back to the very beginning and having a little chat about what it was like for you growing up in Darndale, I think it was.
First of all, thanks very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your show. So I grew up in Darndale. Darndale is a place where no one really wants to grow up, to be honest. But it is what it is, you know. All my life I wanted to be a professional soccer player. I suppose like most young lads' dreams is to be a soccer player. I dreamt of being a soccer player. I was an avid Liverpool fan. Every day I played football, but I grew up in a dysfunctional house. Mother and father, I suppose, came from a bad generation, had bad traits, drank, gambled, never worked, so they weren't working class people, always in social welfare. And, you know, when you grow up in that, you become a product of that environment, and that becomes the mediocre thing. Like, everyone just thinks that's normal. So obviously I grew up in that, with that mindset. But I still found some solace when I played football. So that was like my outlet. So at home wasn't a really good place to be. I never really called a home until I actually met my wife and settled down and had kids. And now I feel like I'm in a home. Now I know the difference, and how I grew up was so bad compared to what I have now. At the age of 14, I became really good at football. I always had this drive in me for some reason. I still do these days. And even when I look back now, I know I always had that. It's weird, like, because like I feel like some people are born with a drive. Some people are born with different things. One thing I was born with was a drive to be better, a drive to always better myself, no matter what circumstances I was in. So at the age of 14, I got a trial for the Dublin team, the DSL. I made that team, played the Kennedy Cup, played really well, had scouts looking at me. At the age of 15, a scout from Dunfermline came to watch me. I was playing for St. Columban's in Coolock. I was told he was coming. Day he came, I scored 10 goals in one game.
Wow, oh my God.
Yeah. But to be honest with you, my mindset was, and some people get nervous when they know a scout was watching, but because of where I came from, because of I had nothing, and because I was the underdog and everyone thought, you know, no one ever makes it from there, no one ever makes it cut. I had the opposite attitude. I was like, you know what, I'm going to do everything today to prove to this man that I can be the best. And I was greedy and I was selfish, but I'd done what I had to do. And after the match, the man knocked down to the house, offered me a trial over in Scotland, which I obviously took. It was a class atmosphere for me and for the community as well. You know, it was a really big boost of confidence for me and for the community, I suppose. So anyway, I go over 2 weeks later. I got off a flight. And the under-16s are playing a team called Falkirk. And I go to the match and they asked me, do I want to tug out? And I was like, this is the chance. Like, so anyway, 20 minutes to go, they're losing 3-1. and I come off the bench and I scored 2 goals to make it 3-3, and I laid up the winner and they won 4-3. I suppose the difference in me and probably others was because I had nothing, because of where I came from. Like, I witnessed a murder at the age of 10 in Darndale, seen some man getting shot. Rob cars all the time, always drug dealers around. It was all negative. Now, I didn't really realise how bad that was, obviously, until you actually take yourself away from that environment. And then you actually realise, Jesus, no, you don't know. Like, if you don't know something, then you just don't know. Like, you don't know any better, then you just think that's the norm, and that's what everyone is doing, which is obviously not.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like, look, I'm taking this opportunity, and that's it. And I had that drive in me to go get the ball, to go do the right thing, to score. I wanted to prove so much to get that goal, to get that dream, make it come true, and to show everyone that I could do it. So that was my mindset. The next day, I met the first team manager. He brought me around East End Park in Dunfermline, and they offered me a YTS scholarship, which is a youth training scholarship, which is preferably like an apprenticeship professional. That was for 2 years. I took that. Within 6 months, I was progressing really well, playing Celtic, playing Rangers. Then I got caught home, saying my father had committed a crime back home in Coolock, a manslaughter, which put a stop, in a sense, because I had 5 other brothers and sisters and a mother. So I asked the coach, could I go home, just to see how everything was, I suppose. And when I got off that flight in Dublin, little did I know I was ready. I was going into a deep, dark hole when I got off that flight. And I didn't realise at the time, but that's exactly what happened. When I stepped off that flight, I went straight into a deep, dark hole without even realising it. I get home, the house is boarded up, father's in prison, mother sitting there drinking cans of alcohol with locals from the area, down and out, right? My kids and brothers and sisters are upstairs, they're crying, they're being ill-treated. And I just walked in and said, how can I go back and become a professional footballer and leave this behind? You know, I just couldn't do it. Like, it just wasn't an option for me. That was hard to take. So the choices I had was 2 choices. We were under threat from the family that my father committed this crime on, and we no money because we were always on social welfare. So I made 2 choices. One was to join a local criminal gang for protection, and 2 was to do errands for this criminal gang to put money and food on the table. And that's what I decided to do in order to look after my family and my siblings. A month later, my mother moved out of home, went to Liverpool to live with another man, left myself and my sister looking after 4 kids under the age of 10. That's pretty much what happened to me in a nutshell. I went from worrying about putting the ball in the back of my net with professional footballers, living my dream, for it to be taken off me in a blink of an eye, like gone. That sent me into deep, deep depression because, as you can imagine, I already done the inevitable of, you know, people thought I couldn't do what I'd done. I put Coolock and Darndale on the map, going over, getting a scholarship, playing professional football. My confidence, you need 2 or 3 bottles for the confidence I had. You know, it was just like I'd walk around, talk to anyone, head up, so proud of myself, and that just went to 0. And I got a lot of resentment because no one was there for us. Like, we had family, but I'd like to say they were on the bench. They were there for us, but only if you knocked around. You know, no one really came and looked after us. Like, I was 15, just was 16, and we were looking after 4 kids under the age of 10. Like, it was just a bad time. Contemplated suicide lots of times because of the situation I was in. Tried to get back to play football, just trying to get some fitness, trying to get some goals back, but couldn't do it because I always worried about what if I'm out playing a match and something has family, because we were still under threat. I got chased by shotguns. I got chased a lot of the time. I couldn't go places. So it was constant anxiety, constant looking over your shoulder, and then Christmas would come up and you'd be worried about kids not getting stuff and all that. I started taking drugs then to overcome the anxiety, and every time I took drugs, to be honest with you, I felt like I was offloading, like a counselling session. So I actually felt like I was able to talk, because I wouldn't talk about my problems when I was sober fresh. But if I took drugs then, I found myself actually coming out of what I was going through, which helped, but I'd never recommend it, right? At that time it helped, but now looking back, it was the worst thing you can ever do. The best thing you can do now is go for counselling and have a chat and try and get all this stuff out of you in a fresh, sober way, you know, which is what I'm doing now. So anyway, inevitably that led me to a prison sentence in 2013, drug offences. Got 2 years in prison, 13, 14, 15. So about the end of 14, I got to 2 years. I got caught in 13 then, but I went to trial. I said I was 14, the end of 14, I went to the prison. I remember sitting in prison in 2016 and my life flashed in front of me. Literally sitting in a cell, whatever the size was. I don't know what they are. But you're literally like a sheep in prison. Like, you can go to the gym, right? And if the gate's not open, you could be standing there for 2 hours or an hour. And the gate doesn't get open, you just go back to yourself. So you're just a sheep, like, it's just a number. And look, that's the way it is. And I'm not looking for sympathy for anything. My hands up. I committed a crime. I deserved the time. And, you know, I'm not looking for any sympathy on that. But a lot of people are led down the wrong road by a bad generation, and that's how they end up in prison.
Yeah.
But 90% of people in prison have no education. The generation they're being brought up by are not stepping up to the plate. It's just a reoccurring generation. I'm actually working with SEI now. It's an entrepreneur thing, so I pitched to Entrepreneur Ireland. I found a social problem within deprived areas that I want to fix. So my idea is to change generations. Like, my granddad was locked up, my father was locked up, I was locked up, I have a son, Ross. What's going to happen if I continue on?
Yeah. Someone
needs to change that wheel. So in 2016, when I got out, my son Ross was due in October. I was in a criminal gang at the time, and I seen a few things happen. Me and my friend were talking about his kid. He had a son, and we were talking about little traits. My son was due, and we were like, yeah, I'd bring him camping and all that, and it was really good, you know. And it was nice little hero stories, how he looked up to him and all. And 2 weeks later, my friend died of a drug overdose. I'm sitting in a funeral home, and the son walks up to the coffin, and it was just one of those moments. I just looked, and the son didn't want anything. Like, because a lot of people who sell drugs or who are in criminal gangs, their mindset is, I'm doing this for my family, I'm doing this for my kids. This is what you tell yourself, which is absolute bullshit. But this is how you justify it. I'm doing this because I want to have stuff for my kids. I want to have this, I want to have that, right? This kid walked up to the coffin, and the kid didn't want nothing. All the kid wanted was his father to talk to him, to kiss him, to love him. That's it. That's all he wanted. He didn't want money. He didn't want presents. He didn't want gifts. He didn't want nothing. Just wanted his father to give him a hug. And I seen that, and I said, you know what? I am done with this life. I will never, ever again get involved in any criminal activity. I'll never do anything wrong on anyone in any way, shape, or form. And that day I was done. And I swore I was done. And I've never, ever done anything since that day. And that was 2016. So I started to rebuild my life. I started to surround myself with like-minded people with goals, people who, you know, had nothing to do with criminal stuff. I went to watch an Ironman in 2016, October the 7th. Went over to watch an Ironman with a friend. Just purely just to be around someone different and, you know, have a look, see what was happening. I had no even intention to do an Ironman. I just wanted to be around something positive. Watched the Ironman and thought to myself, Jesus, maybe I could do that, right? Now, an Ironman is a 3.8 swim in the sea, a 180k bike, and a full marathon all the same day.
That actually sounds terrifying. That sounds terrifying.
Yeah. Now, I couldn't even do one length of a pill. I'd never been on a TT bike in my life. I'd never even seen them since that day. But it wasn't about that. It was more about the change. It was more about having something different, having a different direction, something more positive to keep me away from that other side of it. So 2017, I sat down with my mate, which was a coach, and I said, what do you think? And he said, look, if nothing else, you'll be fit, healthy, and you're in a better place. So I signed up for Maastricht, which is in Holland, in August 2016. I started training for it in 2017. First time I went to a pool, I didn't even bring goggles, but couldn't do one length. Went back the next day, done one length. After 2 or 3 weeks, I was able to do 4 lengths, 5 lengths. After 2 months, I was doing 1K. And I just continued on, like 7 months to train for the Ironman. And my mindset was, look, I might not be able to do this Ironman, but you know what? I'd be fit and healthy and I'd be on the right direction. And I wanted to prove to my family that I would change as well. So I wanted to make the right environment for my family, for my kids. And I had the choice to do that. So anyway, went to Maastricht, stood on a canal, hadn't a clue whether I was going to finish or not, but I felt an aura around me, and I just said, you know what, I'll give it a shot. I got through the swim. That was grand. Got out again. The bike, I just got through the bike, and then on the run, I done a 3:06 marathon, which is pretty good for an Ironman. I never suffered. I went looking for the suffering because I'd suffered enough in life. My mind was strong. My mind has suffered so much, and I got through so much in life that sports is not suffering. But when I passed that finish line, something happened to me. I got this belief and confidence back in me. And it wasn't initially, but days after, I just felt this strength, this confidence, this belief, this new person. And I decided to sign up for the toughest Ironman in the world, which is Lanzarote, right? So I said, you know what? Let's see what I'm made of. Because people told me I've done it in 11 hours, which is really good for your first one. And so I wanted to test myself. So about 4 months later, I done Ironman Lanzarote. So then that little talk came into my head and said, you were a pro when you were a kid. Maybe you could go pro again, right? So I'm thinking, right, we'll check it out. So I checked the time. So the time to be an Irish pro is you have to do a sub 9:30 in an Ironman. That's the time you have to be. My best time was 10:50, and I had 6 months to do it, right? But people didn't know me. People didn't know who I am, and people didn't know what I can do and how much drive I have as a person. So I went about training, and I was getting about 2 and 3 in the morning. I was doing 100k. I was doing 4k swims. I was doing an immense amount of training just to prove to myself I could do this. But I remember, like, the thing was, like, to be honest with you, like, you have to have a why and you have to have a reason. And the reason and the why, my why and my reason was bigger than me. It was more to prove to people that it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter what your circumstances are, or where you live, Darndale or Coolock, or your parents aren't great parents. Ultimately, you are your individual. It's up to you and you only. And I only really discovered that when I did sort of make that decision to go, it's up to you. Don't be waiting and don't be playing this pity card. Or I was brought up like this, or I had no opportunities. Because that's not going to get you anywhere in life. I remember standing in Barcelona and I stood there for the swim and I just got that feeling, you know, I just felt so strong. Like, I just, like, nothing was stopping me. Like, I was like, this is going to happen, you know. And then, like, I knew what sort of times I had to hit in order to achieve this time. So I come out of the swim, I'm happy. Then I'm on the bike and I'm 100k into the bike and I'm nearly crying because I know I'm on it. Like, I'm going, I'm on this, like. But like you could get a mechanical or something, and if you know, so I'm one of those that until I actually have it in my hands, it's not done. So I have to keep holding myself back. So I get to the marathon part of it, and I had to do a 3:05 marathon in order to come in under the 9:30, and I'm crying, like, because see, the thing is, I know how much this is going to do for people. I know when I go back into schools, prisons, youth centres, and I tell them where I've come from, what I've been through, but yet I still achieved that this is going to be so much to other people. It wasn't even about me. Like, obviously I'm going to be proud of myself for what I've done, but I was more welling up of what this can do to other people. I don't know if you've ever seen an Ironman finish before, but there's a big finish line, and then, like, there's about a 200-meter red carpet, and each side there's like 10 or 20 people deep. But halfway down the line, my family's there. I've 5 kids and a wife, and they hand me the Irish flag. And, like, I went from being in prison, being in the deepest, darkest hole you can think, gave up on life, and here's my family handing the Irish flag, and I'm going through to become an Irish professional athlete. Like, you know, I just can't. It's like, I can't even, I suppose, tell you exactly how I felt, but it was the most proudest moment of my life. And when I got to the finish, I turned around and pointed at the clock to tell all them people who thought I couldn't do it, there you go. So I've done it in 9:25 in the end. And proudest day of my life.
I think it's incredible what you've done. You've provided this symbol of hope for people, and I think the best way of doing that is to have physical evidence to show, you know, because a lot of people can talk, but people don't listen to words. They see action, you know, and they'll go from there. But the one thing I wanted to ask you about was mindset, because I think it's incredible what you've been through. So Before you had counseling, when you were in prison and going through those kind of things in the darkest moments, what do you think it was that kept your mindset going and kept you seeing a little bit of positivity? I don't know, but how can you put that into words maybe of how you did survive those times?
When I went to prison initially, the best thing to do when you're in prison is not take drugs. Because if you take drugs, then that weakens you. So what I done was I went in and I set myself some goals. Like I done my junior cert again. I went to the gym twice a day. So it's just to stay away from the people who are on drugs, stay away from the negativity, get your head down, realise that you have a family out there, you still have a life, and it's easy to go down the slippery slope in prison,
Yeah.
But the best way to do is just go to school, get a job, and just get through your sentence as good as you can without having any hassle for yourself, I suppose. But definitely don't do drugs. Get into the gym, try and get some sort of routine, Start concentrating on things, set yourself goals and have something to do, fill your day, but stay away from the Muppets.
Now, your program is Prison to Pro, or you work under the hashtag Prison to Pro. If you can talk a little bit more about the specific work that you are doing and maybe your ultimate end goal or what you would really love to see this platform do.
At the minute, I'm a coach. I have my own company called Pro Coaching. So I do online coaching and one-on-one for triathletes, swimmers, cyclists, and runners. So that's my company. But I suppose the main thing I want to do is try and change generations. I think that's such a beautiful thing to do, to be able to change someone's mindset, whether it be mother or father, for them to actually work on themselves by getting counselling, by taking up some training, to ultimately inspire their own kids. Because a lot of people out there, they seem to just think the government's fault. My kid can't do anything. There's nothing there for them. There's nothing there for them. Well, if they're sitting there smoking and drinking and taking drugs, I mean, it starts in the family home. They have to step up and show the kids how it's done. So the first thing I promote is to change a generation, is to change yourself first. And then you can work on your kids. Ultimately, it comes from home. You have to try and set your own examples. And that's the program I'm making now. I'm going to go into communities and I'm going to go into schools and I'm going to try and change both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing that you not only decided to turn around your life for yourself and your family, but now you're also dedicating pretty much all of your time to giving back to the communities. And leading on from that, I think you, like I just said, you've done the ultimate 180, change your situation completely for yourself. So I'd be interested to know if you do have a personal definition of what the word success means to you.
Success to me, a Nike sponsor. I would love a big sponsor to back me on what I believe, not just as an athlete, but in what I believe in changing generations. I believe a bigger platform is needed for this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a big sponsor would do that for me, because I think it's such a big thing to change a generation. I don't know if people realise that, but it is such a big thing to be able to change someone's generation for years to come. Like, my dream is this. I'm going to change my generation so much. My son looks up to me. I'm a professional athlete. I'm hoping someday he goes to the Olympics, right? Or his son goes to the Olympics, or his son, right? And they look back and they'll see this big tree and they'll see all the wrong branches, and then they'll see me branching off on this green, bright branch, and I'll be standing there and they'll be in the Olympics and they'll look back and go, how did that happen? Where did that come from? And I'll be standing there with the high go, that was me. I won't even be around for that, but I believe that'll happen. And that's the beauty of changing a generation, because that's what you can create. I'm changed forever now. That's me. This is my new life, and I'll never go back to that. And I'll never condone it. But look, at the same time, I don't throw my nose up to people like that either, because I know, I don't forget where I came from. Yeah, I'm not going to blank them out altogether, because I still like to talk to them to try and change that mindset.
And then I have one last question for you, and I'm going to let you go. If you could go back to your 10-year-old self, having experienced the mountains of things you've experienced in your life already, both career-wise, I guess, with your sport, and then just personally as well, what's the biggest piece of advice you would give your 10-year-old self moving forward in life?
don't really know, to be honest. Like, I mean, just get into sport, I suppose. That'd be the main thing for me, yeah. Try and get into sport, get into community, get around people where you can talk to, because, you know, when you're in a sport, anyone that's managing or coaching sport are good people, and they're good mind frame, and they're good people to be around. And they can pick up on a kid that's probably, you know, down at times, you know, and they can give advice. And it's good to be around other kids, you know, to communicate. Sometimes when you're in the house, it's a bad place to be. But if you get into a sport, you can forget about that negative thought for maybe an hour or two. So for me, it'd be to get into a sport, try and get into any sport. Try some sport, and you'll find one that you like, and then just keep going training. And get into a sport or something that you like. Doesn't even have to be a sport, something that you like, but get into some sort of an activity to take your mind away from the negative if you have a negative at home. Ultimately, sports has saved my life, 100%. Sports has saved my life. But I will say, if you have any issues like I had growing up, right, sports will do you so well because you know you're fresh and you're healthy. But if you don't get rid of all the negativity that's down that you've buried, it will always pop its head back up. So it's always good to address it and go counselling. So I go to counselling every week addressing my issues. So for me, I'm changing all my traits. I've started from fresh. All my traits are all fresh traits in order to show my kids the traits.
I feel very grateful to have had you share your story, because I know, you know, a lot of people will get something from this. So I just want to say thank you so much for giving up your time and chatting to me. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you.
No problem. Yeah, thanks very much, Lucy. Really appreciate it. And keep up the good work, because it's people like you that put platforms out there to help others, you know, and my story hopefully helps others.
Thank you so much for listening, and as always, please rate, share and leave a comment if you like what you hear. And don't forget to follow @WhatIt'sLikePod on Instagram and Facebook. To find out more about Ger's work, visit the links provided in the show notes. I'll be back next week with more inspiring stories, but for now, this has been What It's Like with Luce.